it's me. I wanted to talk a little bit about Game of Thrones before we get started. I was a latecomer to the series. I watched the TV show pretty much just because it was on HBO. Although I did actually have some experience with it already when I was a kid. I found a copy of the Hedge Knight graphic novel adaptation at the library, which I read and I enjoyed without really ever getting a sense of like its larger connection or feeling the need to seek out the books that it was connected to. To be honest, I've never really been that big of a fantasy guy. I've always been kind of more into science fiction. When I was a kid, I read The Hobbit and the Narnia books, but honestly, that was pretty much it. I might pick up a book or a short story if it was written by a writer who I liked, but otherwise, I honestly couldn't be bothered. Which is not to say that I haven't enjoyed Harry Potter or the Witcher series, but I came to those pretty late, to be honest. The showrunners have done an okay job, and I don't think I've been quite as down on them as some people have with the last season. That said, I did appreciate the frustrations that people had with some of the fast travel, I guess you could call it, that's been occurring. On the one hand, I feel somewhat comforted by the fact that George apparently has an outline for the series that he started with, which I think is really essential for having a satisfying ending for a series. On the other hand, I suspect that that might be fairly perfunctory at this point, so I don't know how much of it is an actual fleshed out idea and how much of it is like a scribble where he says, good guys win, question mark, question mark, question mark, lots of speculation, which would be not great. For me, at least, it's easier to start a story than it is to end one. It's kind of like juggling. It's one thing to throw balls up in the air. It's another thing to catch them, right? So before I start, I wanted to make some predictions about the show, and we'll see how that goes. Now, I've been trying to avoid as much information as possible. I haven't even checked out the trailer for this final season. Oh no. I looked at my Twitter. This is all trending. Are these the people who die in the first episode? Oh my god. Oh no. I have been spoiled on one minor thing, which is that Dany shows up at one point in Winterfell, which I think is pretty obvious. But outside of that, I'm pretty much totally in the dark. Yeah, so these are my predictions for what happens at the end of Game of Thrones. Okay. Oh boy, here we go. North shit. As far as the actual story goes, I am going to be shocked if Winterfell doesn't fall. Probably not in this episode, but we might even see them outside the walls. And it would be cool to see a general campaign of them trying to stop the dead and just getting forced like further and further south as the series continues. I think that would be really freaky. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. I think we're going to see the others actually in King's Landing. I think that's how bad it's going to get. I could see this even getting worse where they're having to actually head into the south to survive. First step, we've got Jon Snow. I think Jon's going to make it to the end. I think once you've been resurrected, that kind of gives you some armor. And I think it makes sense that his story comes off as the longest journey if we start out as just a bastard and then we wind up as the king of Westeros. A lot of pithy quips in this ep. Everybody's very quick. Oh my god. Oh my god. I think if it was up to him, he'd probably prefer to just be the king in the north if he was anything, which is why I think it actually kind of makes more sense for him to wind up in charge, because it's something that he doesn't want. And due to his birthright claim, it makes sense that people would be likely to accept him as king, even if he doesn't want it. This is a good date. Next up, Dany. I am convinced that Dany is going to die. I don't like to say it, but I feel pretty strongly about that one. I think that she's going to take the throne, but I don't think she's going to keep it. I think she is a symbol of something older. I don't know if she's going to go like cray-cray or not. The red underneath the white is a nice touch. I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, they have been hinting toward that pretty hard, but I think at the end she's going to go out on her terms if she does go out. I believe that she's the last gasp of the Targaryens. She's going to play an important role in the war, but I don't think she is going to be around for the peace. Arya is going to make it. I love that little grin at the end there. Obviously, there's some thematic similarities between her and Lyanna, although I don't know how much that's going to be carried through. She strikes me as the sort of person who's going to be a fairly lonely figure throughout her life. We saw that in the last season where Arya was helping the Starks, but was still at some remove from them emotionally. I think Sansa is a coin toss. Man, Sansa has really got it all figured out. Although I'm worried she might have it too figured out, because you need somebody like Jon to make that reckless move of trusting a stranger in situations like this. The politically adept move is not always the right move. Cersei definitely has to go. Like, I mean... Well, yeah, Cersei has to go. There's no way. Am I crazy, or does King's Landing just seem like really empty now? There's Cersei, obviously, there's the mountain, but who else is even left at this point? I guess there's that weird creeper. Oh heck, I wonder who Bronn decided to do. I mean, it seems like the smart move would be to stick with Cersei, but he's been with Jaime for so long. I mean, I guess part of that would depend on what you think about Cersei. I could see him maybe deciding that Jaime is the safer bet. Let's see, who else? Oh, that dude's 100% gonna die, I forgot to mention. I think Jaime is gonna pull through, just because by the rule of what's the most depressing, that seems the most likely. I think he's pretty much unkillable at this point. Jaime obviously understands the threat that the White Walkers represent, so I think he's going to be very important in the war to come. And I could see him with like a Valyrian steel fist, just really giving those guys the business. Bran lives, the Hound lives. No, the Hound dies. I should just do a couple of these, so that way I can pretend I'm right either way. The Hound lives. I'm going to go ahead and call this now. It might seem crazy, but I think we're going to get an appearance from Eddard, probably like in a flashback. I think Sean Bean is making a return to the show, and it's going to be like a real big shock, and I'm really excited about it. If you have any theories about Game of Thrones, go ahead and post them in the comments below, where I will not read them because I don't want to get spoiled. Thanks for watching, and now our watch is ended, and I'll see you next week.